Thank you for coming. I trust that your cell phone is in silent mode. I know that mine isn't, so I'd better do something about that. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Sam Srivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajajana Setam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Radita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Kurana Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhyeva cha Viditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Need some height. That's where it is. Okay. Yeah, if you could just lift this. Yeah, the whole thing. If it lifts. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a lot better, isn't it? Okay. You can make it a little tighter if you can. Okay. That's good, right?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, the thought I had in mind today was degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom. It's not either or, but it's a question of degree. Let me think where I want to start with that. Well, let's start with, we're not as free as we think we are. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimurtatma kartahamiti manyate. The meaning is that everything is actually being done by the modes of material nature. You know what the modes of material nature are? You know?
Yeah.
Some people probably don't know. Everybody knows.
You don't know.
Mixed. Okay. They're called gunas. Guna means modes. It's usually translated modes or qualities. Guna can mean a quality. The material nature is the force of the energy that surrounds us, the unconscious forces of matter. So the Bhagavad Gita says that there are three qualities of nature. goodness, passion, and ignorance. Sattva gun, rajagun, tamagun. And they're all described in the Bhagavad Gita quite vividly. But the mode of ignorance is characterized by dullness, sleep, procrastination, madness. These are qualities of stupidity. These are qualities of ignorance. And your drunkards, your madmen, and your dullards, they're in the mode of ignorance. And the mode of passion is characterized by intense desires, longings. I want. And it's also characterized by intense endeavor. I'm doing it. People work because they're full of desire to want to have, to achieve. This is passion. And goodness is characterized by knowledge, by peacefulness, calmness, clarity of mind. These are qualities of goodness. And the Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada compared these three gunas, three qualities, to colors. You have red, blue, and yellow, and they mix in different quantities, so you get all these Pantone colors, right? Those who work in graphic arts. Is this still Pantone colors still the standard?
Yeah.
They are. Okay, thank you. I'm out of touch a little. So you get all of these Pantone colors, which is, they're defined 20% this, 40% that, 10% this, and so on. So you get all these colors from three, basically, mixing up in different ways. So we have these three qualities, but they're mixed in different quantities. So we're 20% ignorant, 30% passionate, 50% good, or some other percentage. And these qualities were always fighting for supremacy. That's also there in, let's see, Bhagavad Gita. Rajas Tamas Tata. Let's see. Do I know where it is even? That's always the challenge. I think I know, but I may not. Yeah. Rajas tamas chabhipuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Then rajas sattvam tamas chaiva. Tamas sattvam rajastata. Sometimes passion's on top and ignorance and goodness are down. Sometimes goodness is on top, passion and ignorance are down. Sometimes ignorance, and so on. So they're always like fighting. There's always a sort of competition among these qualities. There's always a pressure. So these qualities are pushing everything. We're doing things because we're forced to do things. The person in the mode of ignorance is forced to be stupid. He's forced to be crazy. He's forced to be self-destructive. He's forced to be dull. Because he's like a person who's diseased. He's forced to, whatever it is, cough or visit the bathroom 15 times in an hour, or whatever the symptomology is. He's obliged because his body is forcing him. So a person in ignorance is obliged to be stupid. A person who's affected by passion is obliged to be full of desires, to be working like anything. He's pushed by the quality of passion. And even a person in the mode of goodness is obliged to be a peace lover, a contented person. That also can work against him because he becomes complacent and doesn't rise to higher levels of spiritualization because everything's fine. If you can live in a nice, peaceful ashram or a nice, peaceful bungalow somewhere and just read and think and so on, oh, he's happy, But he stays like that. He's got an interesting book to read. He's got something to think about. He doesn't go past that. So it's said that we're conditioned by these three qualities. Person in ignorance is conditioned to sleep, to madness, to illusion. Person in passion is conditioned to hard work and unquenchable desires. Person in goodness is conditioned to being philosophical and gentle and so on. So Krishna says all our activities are governed by these qualities of nature. We're being forced to act, and we're thinking that we're independent. Ahankara vimurtatma. Vimurtatma means thoroughly bewildered. Murtatma means bewildered, and vimurtatma, really bewildered. By what? Ahankar. Maybe, I'm sure some of you are familiar with that term, ahankar. Means false ego. False ego. Ahankar, vimurtatma. Literally it means, I'm the doer. Kara is the person who does. Our karma comes from this kar root, to do. So kara, the doer. Who's the doer? Aham. I'm the doer. I'm making it all happen. And Krishna says that's foolishness. I'm controlled by the qualities of nature, and I'm thinking I'm the one who's making it all happen. And there's all sorts of self-help books that encourage us in that illusion. If I think I can. If I just psych myself into it, I can achieve anything. Think and grow rich. That's one. Yeah, okay, you're familiar. It's all, your future is all in your hands. It's just up to you to put your mind to it, and then you'll conquer Mount Everest, or you'll be the CEO of some big corporation. It's just put your mind to it. And this is illusion, because it's not really in our hand at all. According to our past, if it were really in our hands, everybody would think and grow rich. Right? Everybody who wants to, everyone who values wealth would just think, and they go out, buy the book, then they think, and then they get rich. But it doesn't work that way. Some think and blow all their money. Some think and read it and then say, yeah, but they don't have the drive to do it. And some think and say, actually, I don't care about money anyway. And some really go for it, and nature blocks them. Because it's not just a blank slate. According to our past activities, we're entitled to certain results which will come no matter what. Certain amount of happiness will come no matter what. How do we know? Because a certain amount of distress comes to us no matter what. No one stands in queue for misery. And misery comes. So that means happiness will also come. You don't have to bang down the walls for it. According to our karma, it will come. Or not. We can do everything right say, to start a business and have it succeed, and then just one anything. A tree falls on your headquarters, a huge power outage that lasts for a week, just when you needed to be catching the wave. I saw some news item, there was some gold medal Olympic kind of American something or other, and he's on his way to the Olympics where he was like a shoe-in for the, to come out on top in whatever the competition was, and his plane was delayed. That was it. Couldn't compete. He's done all the training, his mind was fixed, everything was lined up, he had all the skill, and one delay in the plane schedule. That means it's not in our hands. We can do some work, some action, but the result of it will not actually come from us. It's not actually in our control. But kartaham iti manyate, I'm thinking. By false ego means I'm thinking I'm something I'm not. I'm the doer. I'm not the doer. Finally, Krishna is the doer. Why? Because material nature, at least we have to accept that nature is more powerful than we are. We'll put Krishna aside for a moment, or we won't look. But nature is more powerful than we are. We're small, and we're under the control of nature. We have to go to the bathroom. No one can say, no, I refuse. I'm my own man. The hell you are. We're under the control of nature in so many ways. So nature is controlling what happens to us. And Krishna is controlling nature. Nature is not working automatically. That's, of course, a big topic, but it's not that the world is just running on its own power. I have a friend, now he's left the world, a mathematician, Richard Thompson, Sadaputta Das, those who are science-minded, mechanistic and non-mechanistic science. Very good book to look up. He disabused me of the idea that I just, assumed everybody knew it from school, knew it from common knowledge, that so much happens by the laws of chance. Who here has heard that things depend very much on the laws of chance? One. No one else? No one else, okay. That evolution takes place because of chance? Have we heard that? Okay, so chance is like behind evolution, making us evolve. Or chance is the cosmos or the universe in which we live has come about by forces of chance. Right? It may have changed the curriculum, but this is what we were taught many moons ago. But I learned actually that nothing takes place because of chance. How many of you would think that nothing actually takes place because of chance? You would think that. Yes, and you'd be right. Dr. Thompson explained to me that chance doesn't cause anything. In mathematics, I'm not a mathematics guy, by the way, so I'm just reciting. You probably, you look like you know mathematics pretty well. No? No? Okay. So I can bluff all I want. You're a math guy.
I just had a question
Okay.
about the uncertainty principle.
Uncertainty principle. Yeah, well, it finally comes down to a theorem. And that it's really, as far as I know, the uncertainty principle or uncertainty theory, we think that we can calculate things, but there's limitations, mathematical limitations on our ability to do it. I don't know much more than that. Again, math is not my field. But at least the idea that chance causes anything to happen is untrue. And I can give an example. How many of you know someone who's been divorced? Come on.
Everybody.
Okay, now we get 100%. Everybody, all of us now. When I was growing up, I knew like one person who'd been divorced. Now we all know many. So we know many people who've been divorced. How many people do you know who've been divorced because of chance? We know that in America there's a 50% chance that the married couple will divorce. How many of you know a couple that's divorced because there was a 50% chance that they could be divorced? Nobody. It's not that there was like, in the state of New York, there was a 48% proportion, and we needed the other 2%. So Jim and Sally divorced. There were reasons, she was bossy, or he was a creep, or she had something going with another guy, or he had some girl on the side, or they just, they were always at one another, or, she realized that he was just trying to get her money, or whatever it was. There were reasons. It's not just to fulfill a statistical number that they got divorced. So chance is descriptive. When there's an equal number of people getting divorced and not getting divorced, then you describe it by saying 50% chance. But it's not that a 50% chance causes it to happen. There are actually causes. And it didn't rain today because Google said there was an 80% chance of rain. There were reasons. So nature doesn't do what it does because of chance. It does what it does because there's intelligence behind it. Just like this room. This room was a dump, by the way, like about a year ago? A little longer?
Like 4 years ago.
4 years? Has it been that long?
3 or 4.
3 years ago. This room was like a real dump. It was a dump, really. It was like a extended janitorial closet. It was just all the junk was here.
Yeah.
Now, why is it a pretty nice room now? It's because there was some intelligence that went into it. We're paying all this money for this space and we're filling it with junk. Why don't we do something here? It's actually a good space, and space is hard to get. So let's fix it up and paint it and put the drop ceiling in and to make it a little nice. But it all happened because of the application of intelligence. Then from the intelligence, someone engages carpenters and painters and all that, and buys the ingredients, the materials. So material nature is working under the direction of Krishna. So finally, every one of us is working under the control of Krishna. And even if we don't think so, that all right, we're working under the direction of nature, and we know that behind nature is Krishna. So we're controlled. We're not independent. Take away the water and I'm finished. Take away the sunshine, I'm finished. Take away the air, I'm finished. So many things I'm dependent on. Take away the food, I'm finished. So independence is out of the question. We're all dependent. But we're thinking, no, I'm independent. We're thinking we're independent. And Krishna takes us to the point in Bhagavad Gita of saying, totally, everything's done by nature. We have no independence. But the commentators say it's not quite no. It's tiny. We have tiny independence. Otherwise, they give a very good argument. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, just think of me, become my devotee. If we had no independence, there'd be no point of telling us that. Right? We'd either do it or not do it according to the programming. But Krishna says, do this. That means we have a little bit of independence. We can do it or not do it. So Srila Prabhupada called that tiny independence. Krishna has absolute independence. Absolute means with no higher principle to which he's obliged. He can do whatever he wants without restriction, unlimitedly, absolute, complete, total independence. And the Bhagavad Gita says that we're like tiny parts of Krishna, the way a spark is part of a fire. And the spark has all the qualities of the fire. The fire is hot, the spark is hot. The fire is bright, the spark is bright. But the fire is big, and the spark is tiny. So we have the qualities of Krishna. Krishna's eternal, we're eternal. Krishna's conscious, we're conscious. Krishna's independent, we're also independent to a tiny extent. And if I'm in the mode of ignorance, my independence will be curtailed to the maximum extent. I can hardly make any decisions. Well, what would you like to do? Maybe let's drive to New Jersey. Yeah, but I can't drive, can't see. A person who's in the mode of ignorance has the maximum. If you're asleep, you can't really do very much. If you're crazy, you can't do very much. If you're lazy, you can't do very much. So the ignorant person has the least independence. The passionate person has more independence. He can start a company, he can do this, he can do that. But he's also bound. He's limited. He can't stop working. He can't stop working. Even if he's working foolishly, he sometimes can't stop. He has to work because he wants this, he wants that, he needs this, he has to have that. So he's a slave to his desires. In Shakespeare, give me that man that is not passion's slave. Give me that man that is not passion's slave. The man in passion is thinking, I can do it, but he's the slave of his desires. So he has more independence than the person who's really in darkness, but it's limited. And the person in goodness has more independence because he has knowledge. knowledge gives us greater freedom. He's peaceful. Peacefulness of mind gives us greater freedom. His passions are subdued. He has greater freedom. So the person who's working, he thinks he can do anything, but he's more of a slave. And the person who's quiet, who's gentle, who's thoughtful, who thinks, who's seeking knowledge, he has still more freedom. And the person who has the greatest freedom is the person who's revived his relationship with Krishna. Because Krishna says, Sagunam Samiti Chaitan. That person rises above all the three qualities. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. He comes to the spiritual platform. And on the spiritual platform is where the actual freedom is. We're still tiny, but we're rightly situated. We're in our natural position. And so we get free from the clutches of the qualities of matter, qualities of nature. So this, yes, that's where the freedom is. And the freedom is exercised in relationship with Krishna. Essentially, you can say freedom means freedom to turn toward matter or toward spirit, or toward Krishna or away from Krishna. When we turn toward spirit, then we have freedom. When we turn toward Krishna, then we have the greatest freedom. When we turn away, all right, good luck. So maybe that's what I wanted to say about degrees of freedom and about the qualities of nature. And where are we? We're good. We could take some questions if you have some. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But how do you get there?
Oh, you know, I was just thinking, I didn't tell you how to get there. Well, we can say very simply by chanting Hare Krishna, because this Hare Krishna sound is on the spiritual platform. It comes directly from the spiritual platform. And when we chant and hear Hare Krishna, we come to the spiritual platform. So it's the easiest way of attaining that freedom from Maya, from illusion, from the forces of nature. And there are more things we can do that support that principle by associating with devotees of Krishna. That increases our Krishna consciousness. Basically, and there's a verse, Anukul yasya sankalpa pratikul yasya varjana. When we do everything favorable for Krishna consciousness, we make progress. And on the other side, give up what's unfavorable. This is the progress of spiritual advancement. Or in another verse it said, very simple, just always remember Krishna, two things. Two things you have to do. Always think of Krishna and never forget Krishna. That's everything else is details. Is that all right? Okay. Yes.
When you were talking about like degrees of freedom, you're saying that the person that's Sabaguna has the most freedom because he has knowledge, right?
Let's let the A train pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you were talking about the degrees of freedom compared, you were saying that the person in Sabaguna has the most freedom because he has no knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it seems like the persons that are in Rajas and Tamas, like the desires are controlled also by the guna. So how can we trigger or help somebody to get a desire for freedom? I know like there's like 4 types of people that cannot turn towards Krishna, but is there a way for us to?
Is there a way to bring people to desire that? Generally, everyone wants freedom. this country was founded on a desire for freedom. India was, Swaraj, they wanted freedom. Everybody's looking for freedom. But we're thinking that we become free by some material means. By this, by that, by this, by that. And none of it works. But therefore, by hearing, by hearing, people can come to understand what actual freedom is, how to get freedom, by hearing or by any fortunate connection with Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga brings one to the spiritual level. So any way that people can come in touch with Bhakti Yoga will bring them forward on the path of freedom. Or any way that we come in touch with Bhakti Yoga will bring us forward on the path of freedom. Is that okay? Yes. Yes?
What is Bhakti Yoga?
What is Bhakti Yoga? Yoga means connection. Connection with what? Connection with the Supreme, connection with the Absolute, with the ultimate reality. That's yoga. And the ultimate reality is seen in different features. At first, it's sort of all-pervading, impersonal feature. And then by further advancement as the source of knowledge and inspiration within the heart, what we call the super soul. And finally, as the personality of the Absolute, the personality of God. And that's Krishna. So bhakti devotional service to Krishna. There are other kinds of yoga. There's Jnana Yoga. There's Ashtanga Yoga. And a lot of branded yogas, hot yoga, cool yoga, tepid yoga, whatever it is. But basically we can say there's Jnana Yoga, there's Karma Yoga, there's Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga is the path of, what would we say, virtuous activities with some devotion. And Jnana Yoga means cultivation of knowledge. There's some devotion in that also. To try to know, not just cultivation of, physics or that kind of knowledge, but knowledge of the Supreme, to try to understand, who am I? What is the source of everything? What is our relationship? What's the, these topics. That's Jnana Yoga. And then we analyze and we say, well, not this and not that, and not this and not that. So what is it then? It's not this, it's not that. Generally, we come to a sort of impersonal conclusion that way, because it's negative. It's not, what's blue? Well, it's not green. It's not red. It's not yellow. It's not purple. Yeah, but that doesn't tell me what it is. So by this sort of negative method, not this, not that, we get a sort of a vague idea. It's advancement. I'm learning something. Well, blue is not yellow, blue is not green, but it still doesn't really bring me to what blue is. So by this neti, not this, not that, we develop an understanding that we're not matter, that there's material world is not everything, but we only get a sort of vague understanding of the Supreme. But that's quite something. And the Bhagavad Gita says that after many lifetimes of cultivating this kind of knowledge, one comes to the personality of Godhead. And in relation to the personality of Godhead, it's all right, so now there's me, there's the personality of Godhead, good, but something has to happen. Something has to happen. There's a Supreme, there's me, now, some relationship is there. So bhakti means acting in that relationship. Acting in that. And what is bhakti? It's to serve. The hand serves the body because it's part of the body. serving. The politician offers his service to the citizens. The storekeeper offers his service to the customers. The workers offer their service to the boss. We're all serving. The man offers his service to the dog and vice versa. So everyone is serving. As much as we don't like the term, servant. But in devotional service or bhakti is described as susukam, very happy. It's not the bondage of this world where you have to serve 40 years, sends you to serve 40 years. But it's joyful. That kind of service is joyful. And this is the eternal happy engagement of the living being. Now I'm serving my country, I'm serving my family, I'm serving my this, but I'm not really happy doing it. And even if I'm happy doing it, it will all be cut off. I'm happy serving my family, but everyone in the family is going to die, and then what? But this service is permanent and ever increasingly joyful. So that engagement of devotional service is called bhakti yoga. And at the same time, the process for reviving that spirit of devotional service is also called bhakti yoga. So the process and the result are the same. The desired result is to be able to serve Krishna. And the process is serve Krishna. Is that okay? Yes?
I have a question. Your book, Ecclesiastes, says that there's a time to live, there's a time to die. So the tiny independence we have.
The timing?
Tiny independence, you said.
Tiny independence we have, yes.
Yes, so someone commits suicide, is that an act of free will?
When someone commits suicide, is it an act of free will? It's misuse of free will. When we turn away from Krishna, we're misusing our free will. And then we come under the qualities of material nature by association. When we associate with thieves, we tend to steal. When we associate with scholars, we tend to become more scholarly. So when we associate with these different qualities, passion, ignorance, goodness, then they sort of take over. So suicide is an act of great ignorance. And it arises typically from despair, hopelessness, which also arises from ignorance. So one thinks it's like the final act. I'll get free from all miseries I'll end my miseries, right? Put an end to my misery. It doesn't work that way. When actually I have a paragraph about it. Suicide. Okay. That many pages. Okay, let's see. There's a discussion here. The speaker of this book is a philosopher named Kohelet, who complains of the apparent pointlessness of all existence and actually so much misery that we find in the world. And he's perplexed by all this, and these themes run throughout the book. So then if you really get into it and you say, well, life is meaningless, then, well, why not suicide then? And especially if it's meaningless and painful. Let's just put an end to our misery. From the Vedic point of view, suicide only makes things worse. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the self is too subtle to be cut to pieces by any weapon. or burned by fire, or wetted by water, or withered by the wind. The self is a spiritual spark of consciousness that's never born and never dies. So you can't put an end to it by any of these means. And so by suicide, instead of putting an end to oneself, for that which is eternal can never be killed, one plunges oneself into karmic consequences still worse than those one hoped to escape. Having tried to put an end to one's life, but instead, having destroyed only one's physical body, one finds oneself a ghost, full of all the desires one had before, yet deprived of a physical body with which to fulfill them. Instead of becoming a no self, the suicide becomes a miserable, tormented slip of himself, bodiless, anguished, and deranged. So if anyone here was thinking of suicide, I hope we've dissuaded you. But these things are there. People in desperation want to put an end to their life, and they can't. They can't. They can only destroy their body. So that's why they're in ignorance, deep ignorance. And because of their ignorance, they put themselves into worse straits than what they're already in. And that's ignorance. It said in ignorance, one acts in darkness, one gets everything wrong. It's the opposite of what's true. The false appears true, the true appears false, everything backwards. Night appears like day. In passion, one is confused. We sometimes get it right, we sometimes get it wrong, we sometimes get it half right, sometimes this way, sometimes that way. It's all turbulent and confused. And in knowledge and goodness, one sees things more clearly. So the person, and therefore knowledge is superior.
I have a follow-up on that.
Yes.
Kiyole also says that, according to your book, that the wise man and the fool ends up in the same grave.
Yes.
So why do we study scriptures if our end is the same?
Why the author of Ecclesiastes, or the speaker, Kohelet, says that whether you're a wise man or you're a fool doesn't matter, because everyone goes to the same grave. He says it in despair because he's thinking, let me try knowledge, let me find meaning through wisdom. And so he becomes wise, he says, wiser than anyone who preceded him in Jerusalem. He becomes super wise. And one commentator says, he became wiser than it was wise to be. Because he saw that even if I become the wisest man, I get the same results as the fool. I'm buried right next to him. So what was the use of becoming wise? Of course, we take a different view because we don't think that the grave is the end. This one life is only a spot life. It's a part of our journey from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Kohelet is thinking, I have to find meaning within these 20 or 60 or 120 years. And he doesn't see it. At the end, everybody goes to the same grave. What did you get? But the person with knowledge from Bhagavad Gita sees, no, I'm not this body. So the body may go to the grave, but that's not me. That's not me. So therefore this book is meant to be a dialogue between the views of Bhagavad Gita and the views of Ecclesiastes. And he has many profound things to say.
It's a beautiful book.
Beautiful book. Ecclesiastes is really, even as literature, it's a beautiful book, and as thought, it's a very profound book. So that's why I chose it as a book to have a dialogue with. Yes?
Can you elaborate more on the relation between spiritual teachings and scientific understanding of human evolution?
Can I elaborate on spiritual teachings and scientific view of human evolution? Yeah, there's we could say a lot about that, actually. But first thing to say is that the evolutionist doesn't know who's evolving. He's got his eyes on the physical structures. He's got his eyes on, okay, we have this species, we have that species, we have this species, but he doesn't see that within the body is the conscious living being. His eyes are all focused on the body. It's like a person who's, you're studying traffic, your eyes are totally on the cars, and you forget that there's a person in each car. So you think that whatever's happening with the car, that's what's happening, period. So the Vedic sages, they look and say, it's the consciousness that we have to put our eyes on, and it's the consciousness that's evolving from one life to another. So just as an example, if someone is cultivating knowledge, then he can be elevated to a higher position in life. If one is cultivating ignorance, one can be demoted down to the lower species of life. And so there's evolution and devolution also. But the Vedic sages see that. They're not busy theorizing about the physical so much as seeing the living being himself. That's the essence of it. Apart from that, the Vedic picture doesn't really, doesn't accept the idea that everything's just happening by evolutionary development. There's the same Richard Thompson that I cited before. We worked together closely because I was the editor of a magazine and he was one of the authors. So we worked together. He wrote an article about a meeting of scientists that took place at the Field Museum in Chicago, I think it is. They were the top evolutionists, Gould and this one and that one. And he began by saying they all agreed that evolution was a fact, but none of them could agree on what it was. None of them could, because it's easy as a grade school thing. You see, we start from here and then we go here and we go there. It's all very simple. But when you actually have to look at it in particular, when you actually have to chart it, you run into severe scientific problems. The fossil record doesn't really match what's supposed to happen. There's huge problems with the fossil record itself. So Gould tries to solve that problem with something called punctuated equilibrium, which is entirely theoretical. Then, of course, there's Darwin. His evolution is really, as much as he's our idol, Darwinian evolution in the way he envisioned it is no longer credible. And so you have to have newer, more sophisticated ideas of evolution. So Darwin's out, and then you have all these alternatives, which are all theoretical. They're not demonstrated. I was hearing a lecture the other day where a prominent scientist said essentially that he was an atheist, and he said, atheism is my faith. Atheism is my faith. It's not that some sort of scientific evidence compels me to atheism. It's just his faith. And evolution really works a lot on faith. We've heard that everything happens by evolution. you're sort of some sort of weirdo or Christian fundamentalist or something, if you're a creationist or whatever, if you don't believe in evolution, you're like you're a hillbilly or something, just uneducated, and so we have to accept this. But really, once you put the evidence next to the theory, you say, well, this and this and this and this and this, and that happens at the microbiological level. It happens at all sorts of levels. Same Dr. Thompson, he told me, he said the mathematicians all know that evolution doesn't work. Said, but they don't talk about it much because it disturbs the biologists.
So is it fair to say it's a very subtle form of deceit, because even though the scientists understand there is big flaw in the logic, behind all these hypotheses, but they're teaching it as it's reality. It's like facts in school.
Yeah,
so
that's what we call cheating. It's what we call cheating.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but I say I know. That's really cheating.
Yeah.
And they have different ways of dealing with this. If you Google Atma Paradigm, or you look on YouTube for Atma Paradigm, one of my godbrothers from Wales, actually, Kandidi Das, has explained some of these things very, very nicely. Different approaches that we use for validating the truth of evolution. And one of them is, I've forgotten most of them, in fact, the different arguments that they use. It's been a little while since I saw that. But one of them is essentially bluffing. You say you say we've got it, you say we've explained it, but we really haven't. If obliged to come up with the data's not there, or the data doesn't really support the conclusions. But broad brush, we can say that yes, this is all, science has shown. It's da-da-da-da-da. So it's kind of bluffing. And then there's what my spiritual master used to call the post-dated check. That is to say, no, we don't really fully understand how evolution works, but we're so much further ahead than we were, and it's only a question of time until the missing pieces fall into place. So that's really a post-dated check. We don't have it, but we say we're going to have it. We don't have the data, or we don't have the theory that matches the data, but we will. So how many of you would accept, like if you're in the car business, how many would you accept a $50,000 post-dated check? But a lot of science goes on that way, that trust us, it's coming. Just now coming. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that one can only know Krishna through like a Krishna devotee.
One can only know Krishna
Through like a devotee. Or like
through a devotee. Yes.
Like Krishna consciousness. How one do that?
How can one do that? Yes. To know Krishna, we're best advised to approach the devotee of Krishna. And why is that? Because just like some big man, some, big politician or a big movie star or something, to get to see that person or know that person is very hard. But if you get to know his friend, then it's easy to meet him. Or he probably gave the example of say you're on the Upper East Side or something. There's a very wealthy man walking his dog. You know who he is, but what are you going to say to him? Who are you, and why should he even talk to you? But if you say, what a nice dog you have. What a nice dog you have. Then the man says, oh yes, he's a very nice dog. What kind of dog? Oh, he's a Labrador, da-da-da-da-da. So if you make friends with his dog, the man becomes pleased, or his child. The man, you can't bribe the man with, $1 million because he's worth $1 billion. But if you give his son like a little candy or something, then the man, oh, such a nice fellow. So the Prabhupada said the pure devotee of Krishna, or the spiritual teacher, is like the pet dog of Krishna. So by pleasing the devotee, pleasing the spiritual teacher, we please Krishna. To please Krishna directly is very hard, but to please the devotee that's easy. Is that okay? Something else? Looks like we're done. Okay, thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Let's give a big round of applause for this.
Well, we can't end without a plug, right? If you'd like, the books are here, and you can take a look, and maybe even take one with you. Thank you.